Now keep going to chapter 19, because it picks up in chapter 19 and verse 11. Now I saw, this is Revelation 19:11, I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse, and he who sat on him was called Faithful and True. And in righteousness he judges the nations. His eyes were like a flame of fire. On his head were many crowns. He had a name written no one knew except himself. He was clothed with a robe dipped in blood. By the way, do you know what Isaiah 63 says? It's in the Battle Hymn of the Republic. He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. You ever heard that? Do you know where that comes from? That comes from Isaiah 63. And what it says is, who is he who comes from Basra with his clothes are splattered with blood? Do you understand? Megiddo is way up here. It's north of Jerusalem. And all the armies are staging at Megiddo, and one of the sentries goes, what's that? It's not showing up on the radar. There's this dot. And the dot gets darker and bigger, and the dot is kind of like the front end of the Canadian geese, that are coming in the sky. And all of a sudden you see them fanned out, in fall when they're all migrating wherever they go. And that sentry sees that, and all of a sudden it fans out, and Christ is at the front. And you see this massive, let's just read it. He was clothed in a robe dipped in blood. That means that this is after Megiddo. And the armies of heaven, clothed in fine linen, white and clean, are following him on white horses. And now we have to interleave to this what the very first prophecy in the Bible, first prophet, was Enoch, the seventh from Adam. And what did he say? In verse 14 of Jude chapter 1. Behold, the Lord cometh with myriads and myriads of his saints, executing judgment on all the ungodly for all the ungodly deeds they have committed in ungodliness. It's the most ungodly verse in the Bible, because ungodly is mentioned 3 times in one verse, 14 of Jude 1. So we know that myriads of saints, countless numbers of saints are coming, but Jesus adds in Matthew 25 that it's the only time heaven is emptied of all angels. And all, Jesus said in Matthew 25:31, all the angels of heaven will come with the Son of Man. He told this to the religious leaders when they were getting, wound up wanting to kill him. He says, the next time you see me, I'm coming with all the angels of heaven. You can beat me up and spit on me and do everything you're doing now, but wait till next time. You will not be happy. And so that's what's going on here. The armies of heaven, verse 14 of chapter 19, are clothed in fine linen, white and clean. They follow him on white horses, and out of his mouth goes a sharp sword, and that he should strike the nations, and he himself will rule them with a rod of iron. That's Psalm 2, the whole picture of Psalm 2. And he himself treads the winepress, there's the Battle Hymn of the Republic words, of the fierceness of the wrath of Almighty God. And he has on his robe and on his thigh a name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Okay, back to Zechariah. God's plan for the ending. What I just read to you is what the Bible calls the day of the Lord. It's in Joel. It's what Revelation 6 calls, at the last verse of chapter 6, the great tribulation is climaxed at this moment. And this is what Revelation 19 calls the second coming. So the coming day of the Lord is described in Zechariah 14:1. Let me show you where it is. Because remember, the way you understand the order of things is the key that Jesus left. You know how you get a PIN number for something like a gift card or whatever, or your ATM card, and you're supposed to guard it, and you're supposed to, not share it, not write it down and everything else, because if you lose it, or how about this with your cryptocurrency, and you put them in your digital wallet. Did you hear about the guy that threw one away that was worth millions? In New York City. Can you believe we live in a time, a guy threw away a flash drive, and he had Bitcoin worth, 10 million. I don't remember, Bloomberg said it. And the guy was cleaning out, and he threw it away, and he forgot, because he's, all these crypto people used to have so much money. And so this guy was going through all of the trash of New York City looking for his flash drive. And I thought, wow, how we need these keys, these access. You know, he needed that crypto wallet to unlock his crypto, his Bitcoins hoard, and all that. Do you know what the key to the Bible is that explains 1/4 of the Bible? The book of Revelation. Jesus specifically in chapter 1 says, I sent the book of Revelation to the church so they would know what's ahead. The book of Revelation is not to confuse, and it's not to argue about. It's to make us the most confident, assured, focused people. I mean, people should look at us, and they should say, doesn't it bother you, you know, the Country Gardens default in China that's going to ripple through the whole commercial real estate market? Doesn't it bother you that huge bank in China just defaulted on their loan? Doesn't it bother you that, you know, oil is going up or down or whatever? Doesn't it bother you? No, doesn't. The housing market doesn't bother me. No. Now, yeah, I'm going to lose money, but what is money good for? If you don't send it ahead, you're going to lose it or leave it behind, or your relatives are going to fight over it, or the government will take it. You know what I mean? What I'm concerned about is I've seen the ending, and I know there's only one thing I can take with me to heaven, people. I know there's only one thing I can send ahead, and that is all that I sacrificially invest with my life and my time and my treasures for the Lord. And I'm going to live for one thing. Jesus looking at me and saying, you were a good. In other words, that you endeavored to deny ungodliness and worldly lusts and live soberly, righteously, and godly, and you were a faithful servant. You did on earth what I left you to do. Did he leave us on earth to have a better home and garden than you have? You know, that's what the magazine's about. I want mine better than yours, you know. I'm going to have a better bathroom than you, a better garden or house than you. Is that our purpose in life? Yet that's what people spend the majority of their time on. Instead of, this world is not my home, I'm just passing through. My treasures are laid up, not in Goldman Sachs' 4.3% interest accounts, but somewhere beyond the blue. See, the early church understood Revelation. And they took Hebrews 11 says they took joyfully the spoiling of their earthly goods. When I was in college, I ministered behind the Iron Curtain. Each of my summers, I would travel, I would preach in the communist countries, I would deliver Bibles and did all kinds of fun stuff. Do you know what I learned? If you lived behind the Iron Curtain, your children could not go to college if you were a Christian. If you were a Christian, your children could never be a professional. They could not go to advanced studies. They could be a laborer, a ditch digger, a potato peeler, but you could not be a professional. In the communist governments, behind the Iron Curtain, because they were not going to advance Christians. Wow. Boy, would that change America. Most parents live for their kids to succeed. If it comes to the point in America that if you are not inclusive and willing to go along with the whole program, that you cannot go to college, we'll have some silent witness Christians because our kids are everything. Behind the Iron Curtain, it was total. That's why they were so zealous. Those people had already given up financial gain. All of them were laborers. Everybody we work with were poor. I mean, they lived in the worst houses, they ate the worst food, and they were the happiest services. I mean, I would go to a service, I would be one pastor that spoke out of 6. The people sat in backless chair benches, and they would come for communion. I would go to communion, it was at 7 in the morning. They were having communion at 7 in the morning. They walked to the service. They didn't even have cars, they're so poor. And they'd go to communion, and then they had the first pastor, and then they'd sing, 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 sing. Then they have the second pastor, and I'm worn out. I'm like the number 4. I go, when do we eat? When do we go to the bathroom? You know, I mean, how do you get out of this place? They're packed in tight. They were radiant. They couldn't believe they took blankets. They were unheated buildings. How do you get that kind of, I mean, if the service goes more than 28 minutes, people are, what? Is my watch stopped? He has 7 minutes and 18 seconds. He better get done quick, you know. We don't want to be late to lunch. they would go to 6-hour services. It was amazing. Why am I saying that? The book of Revelation is all about Christ's churches on earth. What are we supposed to be doing? That's 1, 2, and 3. And Jesus is clear. He says, I've walked around the churches. You're not doing what I left you to do.